In Climate Watch, a federal judge in Alaska shot down an order by President Trump allowing offshore drilling. The ruling issued last Friday means the Obama-era ban that prevented drilling in much of the Arctic Ocean will go back into effect. The Obama-era ban, instated back in 2015 and 2016, was aimed at protecting area wildlife.
It conserved more than 100 million acres of waters from drilling and covered much of the Arctic and Atlantic Ocean. President Trump's 2017 drilling order reversed that ban, causing several environmental groups to file lawsuits against the administration.
Joining us now is Michael Gerrard. He's the director for the Sabin Center for Climate Change and a law professor at Columbia Law School. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
So, Michael, the judge ruled that it was unlawful for President Trump to revoke President Obama's drilling ban in the Arctic. Is there a precedent for rescinding a predecessor's declaration?
None at all. This statute was passed in 1953, and this is the first time that any president has ever attempted to rescind that designation of areas off limits for drilling.
So
really
there
interesting.
are, yeah, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
So there are other cases winding their way through the system. Will this decision have an impact on those cases?
It could well. President Obama also said that certain areas in the West are national monuments, which means they're off limits for coal mining and drilling. Particularly important is the Bears Ears area in Utah.
Yeah.
So President Trump also tried to revoke that designation. That's in court now. And this precedent that was just set was under a different statute, but many of the same theories apply.
So the executive branch has a large ability to do what it wants. The president has essentially a massive authority. If he wanted to rescind, for example, a lot of these national parks, Teddy Roosevelt, declared them national parks. Could he undo that if he wanted to?
Not by the stroke of a pen. Many of them would require congressional action. And even those that don't require congressional action have to go through certain legal procedures. There's a law called the National Environmental Policy Act. There are other statutes. The Trump administration has been doing a very poor job of complying with those laws, and they are repeatedly being shot down for not complying with those laws and being prevented from going as far as they want with deregulation.
So this judge in Alaska says you can't do it.
Right.
What happens now?
So the Trump administration will probably appeal to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And if they lose there, they can try to go to the Supreme Court. But the clock may well run out on the Trump administration. If he's not reelected, it may be until then that the Supreme Court hasn't decided yet, and the next president, if it's a Democrat, could go back to the Obama stance.
So while this case was working its way through the court system, I know there are other cases too, did the ban remain in place?
Yes, and they're not doing any drilling there. Okay. They have to go through a lot of process before anybody actually gets out there with drilling rigs. Right,
yeah, I wondered about sort of the real world implications if we're talking about companies investing millions of dollars and then pulling it out and then going back in, but nothing really had changed in terms of since the ban has been put in place.
That's right, they have to issue leases, and they haven't issued leases to anybody, so there are no drilling rigs out there.
Okay.
So again, to clarify, because we're not lawyers, but the language in both laws, Congress gives the president the right to occasionally designate public lands and waters for protection, right. But it's not very clear as to whether or not a successor can reduce or revoke those protections.
That's right. The law says that a president can withdraw certain areas from development. It doesn't say the president can put it back.
Interesting. It's really fascinating.
It is fascinating.
It makes me think that, the framers or the people who put these laws into place didn't really think that a future president would try to rescind laws passed by a predecessor.
These laws were put in place to protect precious natural areas. They don't get less precious with the passage of time.
Exactly. That's a good point. Thank you very much, Michael. Appreciate it.